executive leadership, 5% teacher, 5% student, others 21%. So we have a diverse audience.
Very diverse audience.
Good mix, actually. A very good
Yeah,
mix.
so Satish, Jagdish, it will give you an idea of...
yeah, absolutely. Very good mix. Yeah.
Okay.
Over to you, Rashmi.
Yes, thank you very much, Nitin, and thank you for just thinking of the poll on the fly and putting it up. Thank you so much. So it gives us an idea of who's listening in today, who's come into the session today. Session 2, day 1, ICF Bengaluru, welcoming you for day 1 of the International Coaching Week. There's a very famous quote which said, all disruptions start with introspection. Somehow today, I feel in the last 40 odd days of lockdown, it's the other way around. All a disruption has now led to introspection. When we are in that frame of mind to introspect, sometimes most of us forced to introspect, what is it that can help us? Will coaching be a go-to? Is coaching that powerful? That's what this whole week is going to give you answers for. And hopefully this session also, and the panel discussion, a very illustrious group of people we have on the panel. But the session 2 has also is having its own design. And the design factor is we start with Lenny, who's a coach trainer and a business coach herself, the vice president of the ICF Bengaluru chapter, who will welcome you and tell you about the International Coaching Week. So Lenny, over to you.
Thank you, Rashmi. You know, it is said that man cannot step into the same river twice, because when he steps in the second time, the river has changed. It is no longer the same river. Our environment and circumstances are like that river, forever changing and challenging. The success and celebration of our lives, therefore, cannot depend on that river, the ever-changing and the ever-challenging. It has to depend on how we respond to it and who we want to be despite and beyond the challenges and circumstances of our life. The International Coach Federation globally celebrates 25 years of growth this year in 2020. And in response to the global needs of today, ICF has strategically engaged with coaching, corporations, and communities, focusing on 4 goals: developing, connecting, influencing, and leading. Our 5 ICF India chapters, namely Mumbai, Pune, Chennai, Delhi, and Bangalore, have therefore come together to showcase ICF strategy during this International Coaching Week. ICF coaches are powerfully equipped to make a life-sustaining, growing, positive difference. ICF credentials are the game-changing differentiator in the coaching profession today. The ICF Bangalore chapter in 2020 has a new, vibrant managing committee that intends to nourish the coaching fraternity through membership offerings. We are internally focused on developing coaching as a leadership competence and externally empowering the coaching profession with the connecting, influencing, and leading of business corporations globally and local communities. So we invite you, please join us, be a part of our research and development, be a part of our thought leadership, be a part of the systemic engagements that we're going to be working with, and be a part of the magazines and the publications that we will be working with. We have a dream that I would like to share in the words of our revered Indian poet, Rabindranath Tagore. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward into ever widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom. Let this country and this world awake. As coaches, let us respond to our calling like never before in transforming this world into a better one. Today, we have lined up an amazing panel of successful champions of industry to share their stories, their success stories, and also to give you a thought-provoking, insightful session from the Silicon Valley of India, Bangalore. Thank you for being here today and participating in our vision. Over to you, Nitin and Rashmi.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you. That was really powerful. And where the mind is without fear, yes, into that world, let our country awake. True, true, true. Today, the fear is there amongst people, lurking really large. But then coaching has its power. Coaching has helped a few people. Who are some of those who have experienced coaching, enjoyed the whole process, and are here to share their success stories? So the first amongst our speakers today is Anurag Gupta. Anurag Gupta is a Harvard Business School and London School of Economics alumnus with a career spanning across 24 years and the last 8 years in the CXO level roles across varied diverse industries across 6 continents. He's currently serving as the CEO Technology Staffing with First Meridian, a 100K plus associate company, and is backed by 3 private investors, including Goldman Sachs. Besides this, he's an angel investor and also serving on the board of mid-sized companies. So Anurag, the stage is all yours.
Thank you so much, Rashmi. Really appreciate that. Am I audible?
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you. So pleasure to be here. And I was due to be here last year as well, but couldn't make it. So feel very privileged to be a part of this group and share my experiences. So yeah, I mean, the word coaching actually goes back to my college days when I heard coaching for the first time while doing my management grad. And thereon, I went through a bunch of sessions on coaching, but I think they were very prescriptive. They were probably because from the same organization, they were bosses L+1 to L+2, and they would be telling you what to do rather than doing your soul searching. So thankfully, I mean, I had a very different experience back in 2015, and I was with a company called Quest Corp, which is a famous IPO with 144 times oversubscribed in 2016. So I was with them heading their technology staffing business. That business was close to $100 million spread across various countries. And at that point of time, the chairman, the CMD, Ajit Isaac, felt that I need to be groomed along with one more gentleman. And that grooming was meant to take up a larger role. And around 2015, I was also invited to the board of directors for their APAC geography. So yes, my role was expanding, my business was expanding, and I was playing a hardcore P&L CEO role, which probably needed things to be learned and unlearned at the same time. And so that's the time the CMD of the group engaged my favorite coach, Mr. Jagdish Kenny. Very fondly, I call him Chief, right? So this is where I met Chief. This coaching session actually lasted for almost 8-9 months. We'll probably meet once a month for an hour and a half, where would he make sure that no tea, no water sent into my office, no laptops, mobile phone kept with my ear. And to be very honest, I was very skeptical because all this while the coaching word for me was prescriptive, right? Somebody comes and tell you what to be done. But here, this gentleman who walks in and started approaching in a very different way, right? So cutting this short, I think he taught me to, one, it is not about him telling me or the coach telling a coachee, but it's coachee who is reinventing himself or herself, figuring out situations and how he or she would have dealt, reacted, or behaved in a certain way, and how that subconsciously becomes your conscious mind and how it becomes a habit. So a couple of aha moments for me, right? So I come from a GE background, which is operationally one of the best companies in the world, being a Six Sigma master black belt. So I was always into operations, right? Which is great at one hand, but the moment you play CXO roles, you're actually entering a territory of your teammates. So you kind of doesn't let go things, you keep things close to the heart. You look at processes, data, numbers. So while you think you're delegating enough, you actually aren't delegating enough. And you also becomes very nitpicky and choosy about small little things, I think, which during my reflection with him, I realized that I need to let go a lot more. I need to be a lot more patient, right? I need to be not worried about smaller things, right? Somebody coming in a meeting 10 minutes late, it is okay. I mean, there could be reasons. I don't have to throw out somebody from the meeting if somebody is 2 minutes late, right? So I guess, so that's one thing I think I learned was delegation in the true sense, letting it go, and very importantly, uh, prioritize things and understand somebody else's perspective. Second thing, I think, uh, again, being an operational guy, I never had a balcony time. I think I would never reflect. I would react. I would not respond, but react. I think one thing which I learned over those 8, 9 months was not to react, but to respond. Have some time, deliberately park myself and really think through a problem, a solution, or about people or about the business, including my family, right? So I think the reflection, the self discipline of spending me time is something which I learned during my interactions and my coaching ability. Other thing, the anger management. I remember when I started talking to him, not that I was short tempered, but I would get angry on very smaller things, right? And we are looking at larger goals at a CXO levels, running 5 countries, larger businesses. I think you got to manage that. You got to manage it really well, right? Even if you're angry, you probably don't have to discuss or react in a moment, but let it go for some time and then come back and reflect on it. So I think that's another combination of reflection and letting it go. So I think anger management, point of listening, right? Were you hearing or you're listening? You want to give an answer before the question is raised because you have something in mind, or you really want to listen to a question and then answer. So that's one of the very fine things, right? Which you probably you don't realize, in the midst of your CXO careers. But those are finer points which I learned during my coaching time. I think very important. One large learning I had. So I something which I really hate in my life is people telling lie, and that would really put me off, whether it's my personal life or professional life. And I would always say, तुम झूठ बोल रहे हो, ये सच्चा तुमने ऐसा कहा था और अब तुम ऐसा बोल रहे हो, not accepted. And I still remember his one statement, he gave it to me, and Chief, I really love you for that. तुम्हारा सच तुम्हारा है, उसका सच उसका है. I mean, what you think is right for yourself, there's another person down the side or the other side who thinks his or her right is the real right. So not that he's trying to be or she's trying to be dishonest, but that's how he or she perceives the truth. So always respect that. Always trust that people are not trying to deceive you, but kind of hear them out, understand their perspective, and there's always two sides of the coin. So I think to me, that was the biggest aha moment, that what I thought somebody was trying to cheat, tell me a lie, was not really a lie, but it is his or her way of looking things or his or her own memory. And maybe I may be wrong. Maybe it's my truth, but not the real truth, right? So I think these are some of these things which at least I learned to repeat again. Delegation in true sense, letting it go, anger management, me time, and anger management. So I think these were some of those aha moments for me. I think what is kind of transpired from here on, not that I don't have some of these traits, but yes, I have kind of managed them well enough. So subconsciously, which became a conscious now, whenever I get angry, I tell people, let's take a pause, let's meet after 2 hours and discuss this again, because I may react, not respond. I also start spending time with myself, which also means my family time. I also start working on my let go. So I don't really look into the nitty-gritties of things anymore. My role is not operational as well today. So I get enough time to strategize, think, worry about my customers, my people, and obviously also balance my work and life a little better than what I was doing earlier. So I think for me, the coaching definition has changed with that one experience of 8, 9 months. And that has beautifully not only changed me, but also when I try to be, I'm not a certified coach, but I once in a while do come across people where I share my experiences. and I don't try to be prescriptive anymore. I try to ask them questions, make them think aloud, and let them do soul searching and identify answers for the situation, because nothing is similar, nothing is same, neither two people nor the situations. So I think that has been my amazing set of learning. And not to kind of again repeat the same, but I think I owe a lot to Chief. I mean, hats off to you. You really made me believe in coaching, and I feel very, very nice about it. So thank you so much. I also wish you a great stay safe and stay blessed in the COVID times, to you, your families, loved ones, and your colleagues. So thank you so much, guys, and thanks for inviting me. Surely very, very privileged. Thanks, Rashmi. Over to you.
Thank you, Anurag. That was really nice. A beautiful tribute to a coach. And I'm sure you will be one of those advocates and voices that will make coaching go wherever you go. Thank you very much for that.
God bless.
Please, thank you. Same to you as well. So 3 success stories, we heard one. Coming up next is from Ajay. Ajay is the Vice President and Head of Engineering for Software and Digital Vertical at Altran. He has a 30 plus years of experience in the software industry, done his master's from IIT Delhi. He represents Altran at NASSCOM and is part of the IEEE Executive Committee, is on the board of colleges, NSUT Incubation Center, and is an effective speaker trainer at Altran. In other organizations, management and engineering institutions also, he is somebody who makes a big difference. He strongly believes and works towards leadership development. He was coached at Altron by a coach and feels it was a transformative journey for him and a must for leaders. So over to you, Ajay, go ahead.
Thank you, Rashmi, and thank you, Anurag. Nice to hear about your journey, right? And so I'm Ajay. I head the engineering for software and digital at Altron. And I've been growing and doing pretty well as part of engineering leader, growing my business, right? And a lot of focus on operations, I would say. I look at KPIs, look at CSAT, look at numbers, look at delivery. And it was growing well. It was doing pretty well. I was happy, but I felt that something is missing as I was going along. I couldn't figure out what I was missing. And I'm sure at some stage of our career, we realize that something is missing. We don't know what it is, right? So at the same time, our organization decided to initiate a coaching interactions. That was 2017. Now, when I started my session, suddenly I started to look very vulnerable, right? Why so? Because someone was showing you a mirror, and mirror was obviously not looking good, right? And why it was not looking good? Because you had been used to seeing one part of the mirror. So what happened subsequently was we initiated coaching sessions. We used to interact about 2 to 3 hours per month. There were about 10 to 12 sessions. My coach used a lot of tools, questionnaires, surveys. We used to have interactions where he used to challenge me enough. There used to be really a critical questioning, and gently and softly he pushed me into thinking what I was not doing right, or more importantly, what I should be doing ahead for me to grow as an individual, for me to make a significant impact on the organization. Now, with that in mind, we started to define a plan, which was my plan, right? Of course, he gave in a lot of valuable inputs, but it was my plan. It was defined by me. And the focus was on outcomes and on behaviors, because when we have to change, I think the most critical element needed is the behaviors which will make changes happen to you. So a lot of stress was done on behavior. Now, if you look at the way we all work in the organization, there is something called the organizational or a corporate KPIs, and I would call this performance goals, right? So theoretically, these goals also have to be part of corporate KPIs, but they may or may not be there for obvious reasons. So what we did was we defined that. For example, I looked at how to sharpen my business skills. When I'm running a business, how to look at it more strategically, more long-term, think and act long-term. And you have to understand, I was a delivery guy. So I was not really a P&L guy at that point of time. So I was looking at delivery. So it actually needed a lot of shift at my end. So what my coach, and I can name him, Srinivas Upalari, he did was, he would have long sessions. He would push me into thinking, a paradigm shift in thinking in terms of what I should be doing. And this is, to be honest, very difficult at times, right? As someone is showing a mirror. Now, if I look at what is the aha moment for me, I would still say simply looking into the mirror, right? And it was a very difficult aspect, right? When one has to change, you are senior enough, you have to change. It's not going to be easy. What he was doing was building a capacity to deal with ambiguity, which is a lot in our roles, to deal with anger, actually. And Anurag talked about it very well. Capacity to deal with fear, right? Fear of failure. So all that are very important aspects which he helped me. He again asked me to do a lot of introspection to see from a different thinking lens, right? And then to define actions and to work on behaviors which will actually lead to implementing those actions. So it's a mix of different thinking, defining actions based on new thinking, and changing behaviors to rightfully implement the thinking. So what happens is, as you are doing in any of your role in the organization, you are doing pretty well, and you feel that is a way of doing things. But what I realized was that at times you have to change gears. And for me, this change of gear was a transformative moment for me to bring about significant changes in me. Now, of course, as I moved ahead, I started looking along with someone the P&L aspect, so it all helped me. So I would say it was a significant journey. I learned a lot. I continue to learn a lot. I continue to engage with my coach, though we are not formally associated. But that's a journey I've gone through it, and I'm immensely benefited out of it. Thank you, Rashmi.
Okay, and that's the beauty of coaching as a process itself. The coachee chooses whether to showcase the coach or not, and that anonymity makes coaching that much more beautiful and the relationship that much more special. So thank you very much, Ajay Goyal. Coming up next is our third story, and this is Rajiv Krishnan. Rajiv is the managing director of Conferry Hay Group, and he has over 25 years of people and organizational consulting and services experience, as well as sales and marketing experience in Indian and MNC organizations. Rajiv has consulted closely with CEOs and HR heads of client organizations, and prior to joining Conferry, he was the national leader and partner for people advisory practice with Ernst & Young. Previously, he held India.Business leader, managing director, and country head director and CEO positions with Mercer Consulting India, DDI India, and Malfoy Consulting Solutions, respectively. Rajiv is a postgraduate diploma in business management from XLRI Jamshedpur, prior to which he completed his honors degree in mechanical engineering from NIT. A certified executive coach, a certified life coach, and a certified NLP practitioner. Rajiv, your journey now.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rashmi. A warm thanks to ICF Bangalore, all the organizers, Jagdish, and also to my co-panelists, Anurag and Ajay, for inviting me to this very important webinar that actually comes in the midst of a defining moment in the way we look at the world of work and maybe life itself. And maybe I'll talk a little bit of my journey. So many years ago, I joined a startup after a few years of working in a large company and after a break from work. And a very strange thing happened is that very soon I found myself kicked up into the leadership team. And in retrospect, I realized that I got into those roles without the hard years of middle management. And I was maybe not smart enough to realize at that time that this was a critical gap for me, and that I would have really benefited, from an executive coach. But this was almost, late 90s, and one didn't know too much about, one had not heard too much about coaches and coaching. And maybe if I'd engaged a coach at that time, it would have made things very, very different. And but it's a very strange reason. You find coaches are engaged, or people approach coaches for different reasons. But I may have been, if I had kind of gone for coaching at that time, I would have been maybe a rare person who sought a coach because he had not been through the mid levels of management and had not managed mid-sized teams. So I guess, so during those years, so very soon, I was in the senior management of the startup. It was growing very rapidly. It had a CAGR of 74% plus. It was, maybe one of the record beating kind of, growth stories. But I realized that if I'd had an executive coach at that time, it could have saved me from many shocks, crises, and anxious moments. And somehow, there is also certain karma in life or in your at work or whatever it is. And I found that my karma was to land up in difficult situations. So sometimes, there was a situation where the CEO would say, there's a turnaround, this business had to be turnaround. Before I knew it, I would put up my hand for it. And so it also land up, through some decisions of my own, but I would usually be in some tricky situation or the other. Either it would be a startup or it would be a turnaround situation. And therefore, life was always a little crazy. And I really felt the need for a coach. So therefore, I would say that you have to be smart enough to realize when you need a coach. And that was one of the very, very big, kind of learnings for me. The other thing which happened was a little insidious in the sense that, I started thinking I know it all, because I've handled some very tough situations. Then I was also in consulting, as a profession. So then you feel that you have all the answers, that you've learned everything. And then don't, and you feel that, you can tackle any scenario. Then finally I decided that I should also become a coach, and I went in for a certification, and there I came across a very interesting, very fine instructor who told me that no matter how good you become as a coach, you would still need a coach, or rather you would still benefit from a coach. So that set me thinking. I thought, hey, I thought I'll do this certification, maybe it'll help me with my work, and maybe it's good when I decide to be on my own. But here was a coach who told me that even if I become a coach, I need a coach. So I guess that was something which set me thinking, and I was also in a kind of a situation where I needed help. It was once again a kind of a turnaround, and so I engaged a coach. For his own personal reasons, my coach does not want to be named, but he was a well-known CHRO of one of India's most respected companies, and is a very respected coach today. And for me, the aha moment was where I felt I knew, or I thought I knew I had all the answers, and there was something which would help me right under my nose, and I didn't even think of it, and my coach would point it out. So I would look extremely stupid in it, and I would sometimes, maybe if you recorded those conversations, you'll hardly think that this is a person who's getting coached, who's been through such difficult journeys, and been kind of managing P&Ls for 20 plus years and so on, because it's some such very obvious fixes or solutions which the coach guided me without really pointing it out. And then I realized, oh God, how stupid can I be? So that's given me a realization, and I tell everyone whom I can influence. So maybe I got a coach fairly late in my career, maybe almost in the autumn of my career. I tell everyone that you are never too young or too old to have a coach. Have a coach as early as possible. And if your organization is not funding it, find a coach for yourself, pay for it. It's still worth it. And there's so much that you can learn. There's so much that you can avoid. There's so much of anxiety, so much of tough times that you can avoid if you have a good coach who can guide you. So the difference is as stark as night and day, whether you have a coach or not. So this is what I would kind of leave all of you with. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajiv. That was very authentic of you, the way you brought it all out. And so thanks to Ajay, Rajiv, and Anurag for sharing their coaching stories. We have a poll now open for you all. Maybe you can just put in what you think. So Nitin, if the poll is ready, maybe we can have it up for all our participants.
Sorry, Rashmi, there's some technical difficulty that I'm facing.
Okay.
Can you move to the next one, please?
Oh yeah, sure. Gladly, because a poll there was not something I wanted to do, but Nitin insisted. So glad technology took my side. So we move now very seamlessly into the panel discussions. You've already met Ajay and Rajiv, who are part of our panel for this evening. So welcome to the two of you. Now you move into the panel. Coming up next, welcome to our panelist, Arif Aziz. Arif leads the human resource function at Diageo India and is part of its executive committee. At Diageo India, he is responsible for building people and organizational capability aligned to deliver the corporate objective of building capable leaders and attracting right talent. He holds a postgraduate degree from Symbiosis Center of Management and HRD, Pune, and a bachelor's degree in engineering from Kota Engineering College. He's also a certified black belt, hold your breath, not in karate, in Six Sigma. So Arif, welcome to the panel.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, pleasure completely ours as hosts having you here. Next is our panelist, Bindu Venkatesh. I have not seen a profile like this. Bindu Venkatesh plainly writes VP HR and Training Oracle. Prior experience, IBM, GE, Infosys, Volvo, and Bosch. Education, MSc, London School of Economics, 1998. MA, Tata Institute of Social Sciences, 1995. A certified coach. Bindu, welcome. Welcome to the panel, and I'm sure you're going to add so much more value as well.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Our pleasure. Next on our panel is Urvashi. Urvashi works as a coach, psychologist, consultant, and HR practitioner. And her coaching style, very supportive, insightful, facilitating a partnership between coach and client. And the sponsor, of course. She works for the empowerment of women along with the coffee value chain and has represented the country in Illy Coffee Coffee forums in Italy as a young woman leader in coffee. She also has been trained by Jan Matan, one of the top 3 coaches in the world today in intelligent leadership coaching model. And she's coached leaders in organizations both in India and internationally, such as HUL, Johnson's Control, Diageo, and many others. Urvashi, welcome to the panel.
Hi, Rashmi, and hi, everybody. Great to be here, and I'm really looking forward to the discussion. We had lovely sharing from real-life coaching experiences, so glad to be here.
Our pleasure completely, and welcome to you. The next panelist is India.This, a senior programmer and a senior program leader, software engineer, and was an entrepreneur too. Currently with Samsung, senior program leader there. And his current role is implementing the coaching culture in his organization. So India.This, welcome to the panel.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be among the eminent panelists. Hope I'll be able to value add. Thank you so much.
True that. And the man moderating it all, who had an illustrious career as managing director of Airtel and Gillette, to name a few of the companies he was with, past president, ICF Bengaluru chapter, a very popular person amongst the ICF gang, Mr. Jagdish Kiri, who will be the moderator of this session, which is going to be all about experiences from the corporate world and on what it did and what it did not. So Jagdish, the floor is all yours now. You can take over.
Thank you, Rashmi. That was lovely. What a lovely start we've had to the ICW. A fantastic morning session, afternoon session, and now this eminent panel. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the second session of the day. It's a big gathering. We are about 260 people who have logged in. And thanks to COVID, that we are actually meeting virtually, and we have 260 people on the meeting, in the meeting. You know, if it was not for this, and if we had to meet as we generally try and do, we would have probably been about 60 or to about 100 people in a hall. And here we are, and I must say I am extremely privileged and honored to be amongst this eminent panel. We've had the session before this where we talked about coaching awareness. We had a live demonstration, and we had a lovely analysis of the competencies that have been demonstrated during that session and what a coach really needs to demonstrate. In this panel discussion, we hope to get in deeper into coaching and hope to understand coaching from different perspectives, from different people who are shaping the coaching industry in this country. This panel, I could talk to you for about 3 hours, because there's so much to learn from you. There's so much to understand from you. Unfortunately, I've been given only 30 minutes. So let me try and make the best use of those 30 minutes. And let me start with you, Rajiv. Your story, which you just talked about, resonated with me. And when I was leading Airtel, I really wish I had a coach. The kind of mistakes I made. I mean, from the external point of view, people think it was a great success story. Yes, it was a great success story. But I know what kind of mistakes we made. And if I had a coach, I would have probably made better mistakes and different mistakes. And I would have learned from what I didn't want to do as mistakes. Rajiv, you lead an organization that offers services to help develop your clients' leadership bench. You have a range of products that you offer in the leadership development suite. Where does coaching and how and where does it fit in with the range of products that your organization offers to your clients?
Yeah, so thanks, Jagdish. So that's a great question. So coaching, I mean, these are some of the best days for coaching in the sense that there is a real recognition of the need for coaching, the value that it adds, and and also uh, uh, that it's not just the CEO as was originally thought, but it's a range of folks down to mid-level leaders who need coaching. I think that's a realization which has come. So in our suite of offerings, we don't specifically push coaching in that sense, but coaching is usually it's an outcome or it's part of an intervention which is there. So maybe it's part of a frequently an assessment and development kind of an intervention which is there. The cases, but there are standalone coaching requirements also which come, but we kind of take them a little opportunistically. We don't actively seek those kinds of standalone coaching assignments. So I would say that we probably don't do a great job of taking it to the market, given that there are many other areas which take up our our focus. And also typically we have only a small group of coaches within the firm and who are tied up and who have operational roles as well. So therefore we often rely on external coaches, and we have empaneled several coaches with us. But as I said, that it is an important part of it, but not really as I would say a very key focus area for us as a firm. That's how it is. So maybe we should kind of change that, alter that, but over a period of time, that's how it's kind of panned out.
Rajiv, I've picked up two statements of yours.
Yeah.
One is from your website, which says leaders must understand themselves and their own goals before meaningful, sustained change can occur. Yeah. And the other one is in the session just now when you were sharing your story. You said people are, one should be smart enough to know when you need a coach.
Yeah.
And just now what you just talked about coaching in your suite of, I'm trying to understand your thoughts when you use all these three points of view with related to coaching.
Yeah, so I guess frequently whenever we have done coaching, we've got a feeling that the coaches got dragged a little reluctantly to the altar of coaching. So that's the feeling that we get. And it is to maybe fix some behavioral issues, or it is to fix certain things that the organization has brought them to the kind of coaching room, so to say. And sometimes you get a feeling that they would rather not be there, and they don't feel too proud of it, and so on. So that's typically a thing which is there. And relating to your point, I think it's important that the leader should know himself or herself, before the leader can really make a transformation. That is one very important point. The other thing is that, and therefore you also need to know when you need a coach. So I can say that I delayed having a coach for almost maybe almost 20 years. I'm sorry to say that, and I know that, I mean, it sounds quite stupid, but I think it's important that I speak the truth. And then you realize what a as you've been, because during all those hard times, during all those journeys, you could have benefited immensely. And maybe even in the organizations where I worked, had I told them I needed a coach, they would probably have allowed it. But it was just some kind of mental block that I had, where I thought that maybe I knew enough, or maybe because I was consulting and largely, talking to folks about their issues and trying to solve it, that I had all the answers, So I'm just saying that, it's a big trap into which you can fall. And I'm sorry that I not only fell, but I was in that trap comfortably or uncomfortably for quite some time. Thank you. Thanks, Jagdish.
Arif, Rajiv just spoke about the mental frame of the person, and not every time does the leader take it in a nice manner that when you ask him to, that you recommend him a coach. But you've been trying to build your leadership bench, and I'm aware that you believe in coaching, and you do use coaching quite a bit in your organization. Tell us a little more about how you talk to your leaders about coaching. How do you present and how do you position coaching to them? And how do you look for the panel of coaches that you want to work with for your company?
So Jagdish, it's a great question. And I must say that engaging in a conversation with a leader on they having a coach is a coaching exercise by itself. If we start the conversation, or if we engage in a conversation by saying that you need a coach, you have lost the impact, because you straight away are recommending or directing a particular action where the ownership is not so high. So my learning has been that when you look at development of leaders and what can really help them, getting that out of them in a conversation similar to how you would handle a coaching conversation is really powerful. And in some of the conversations I've had in recent past, it's amazing that if you allow people to be vulnerable, and the way one can do that is, just having a genuine and authentic conversation. If people feel that the interest is in their development, they get to be vulnerable.
Okay.
And once you do that, it automatically comes out, maybe I need a partner who can help me. Maybe I need a person who can really help me to be more successful than what I am. And depending on individuals, it sometimes turns out to be a need for a life coach, sometimes someone who can really help them to improve their performance and so on. So I would say crux is the same, coaching conversation for them to have a coach. What we really look for, and I think there are three things, and we have talked about it a lot in recent past, so I can articulate clearly. First and foremost, someone who understands business. We're not really looking at individuals coming and giving business solutions. But if you don't appreciate business and don't appreciate the complexity of what it means to be in a consumer goods company with a high regulatory framework, it's very difficult for you to build that trust and partnership, because people have questions on one's inability to understand. So I think that's the first one. Second thing which we have talked about a lot, and I think which has worked well for us, is and I'm just not trying to put an assessment to coaches, but honestly, when you start looking at any pool of talent, you would see some people who are effective, some who are not, and so on. And for us, the biggest differentiator is how effectively does the person listen. While all of us are coaches, but to a different level, we are good at listening or not. And I think that's one benchmark we hold high. And it's very easy for us to pick it up in 3-4 conversations, how effectively the person listens or not. Last but not the least is the personality of the individual and just the connect. How can this person really build that connect with this individual? Will this chemistry work or not? And I think we do ask that question, and sometimes it just happens to be different individuals, different type of people build that chemistry or not. It's a judgment, but we try to make that judgment by meeting people a few times and really enabling those conversations between the coachee and the coach and seeing whether that is working or not. Because if that doesn't work, it will not go along. So hopefully that's helpful, Jagdish.
Oh, fantastic. So we have a champion for the industry here in you. There's one thing which comes up to my mind, Arif. I often quote this and I often use this statement, and I believe in it, and I'm sure a lot of us believe in it. And we say that leaders do not predict the future, they create the future. How has coaching really helped your organization's leadership to create the future?
I'll take an example more than anything else,
Okay.
because I think it's more powerful if we talk about a specific example. If I really look at the manufacturing footprint we have in the organization, really look at the complexity of our manufacturing. We're looking at 50 manufacturing plants, got to have presence in every state because alcohol is a matter of state excise and so on. It's a very complicated affair for one to be able to manage a lean supply chain, at the same time ensure availability in every state and meet excise requirements and so on. And one person who really shines in how he's creating future for the business is actually Kedar, who was one of your coaches. And the way he's thought through on around our supply chain transformation for next 3 to 5 years, and really consolidating footprint at the same time, ensuring presence where it needs to be. So availability, success ratio, at the same time, lean supply chain. He's basically creating a footprint transformation strategy from scratch, and he's implementing it. And I would say tremendous credit to how you have worked with him in recent past, in last, I think, more than a year or so in his role, and how his thought process has evolved as he's gone through that exercise. So I would say it is a lot of credit to Kedar because he's thinking, but it is a lot of credit to this coaching relationship he has had with you, which has helped him to really unlearn and learn new things and be a better and more effective leader.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing with so much courage. I remember that Project Simplicity with Kedar. Ajay, we heard your story, and thank you for sharing it so transparently and with so much of courage. You talked about, you were shown the mirror, you talked about different thinking, you talked about introspection, talked about different lenses. But when you were asked to take on a coach, what was your mental frame at that stage? I want this to be first you to deal with what was your mental makeup when you were told that we would like you to take on a coach. Would you like to meet XYZ? Or let's say whoever came to you and positioned coaching for you. How did you think about it at that stage? And two is, when you got into the relationship, how did you prepare yourself to get the maximum out of coaching?
All right. Yeah, thank you, Jagdish. Again, a great question. So what I would say is, as I said, I felt I was doing pretty well in my role. I was growing, business was doing well. All KPI, CSAT, and other things were phenomenally well. So I didn't know whether I really needed one. And of course, Rajiv talked about sometimes you realize that you need one, and it could be different stage or a different phases of a career. So maybe I was in an early phase. I didn't know that. And believe me, a lot of people will never know that actually, right? And so I was one of them. But having said that, when it was told to me that this is going to come up, I believe that I'm a very open person. I want to learn a lot. So it was excellent. I was very positive about it. I always want to learn more and more things within my organization. I have transcended different roles within engineering, different customers, different things. So I took it up very positively. We had first meeting, and the kind of relationship we could build. And as I said, I was vulnerable, I felt, right? But the relationship we could build, the connect I could build with my coach, the openness with which he could talk to me. That was the first step. So after first meeting, I think it was fairly easy. I could share with him anything which I have not shared to even at home or my close friends or my boss and so on, right? So I think it went on. So it is important for a coachee to take it very openly, to go step by step, move forward step by step, because assuming that everything will happen on day one or month one is not the case, right? So that is answer to your part one of the question. Sorry, can you repeat the second part of the question?
Second part was, once you got into the relationship,
Yeah.
How did you prepare yourself? Because, as you get into the relationship, you begin to learn and discover more. And
Right.
then you begin to say that if I put in a little more effort, maybe I can get 2x, 3x out of this, or maybe 10x. So how did you prepare yourself to maximize your benefit?
All right. So I think, I mean, the way we had a critical questioning, the way he pushed me, the way he made me thinking, paradigm shift in thinking. So what my core job was to look at whatever actions I'm defining, and more so in terms of behavior. So my first job was to look at how do I change my behavior, else those actions will never be implemented. I'll go back to my core job of operations, which makes me happy, right? Makes me proud or makes me feel more confident. So first thing I looked at was how do I change my behaviors? And then when I was working on some of the newer programs, wins, business wins, I was trying to implement it there. When I did that, I could get some early success, which was very differentiating. And I look forward to doing different things. So the moment I did it, it excited me more. So I went preparing it for more. So each meeting I was able to actually able to showcase what I did based on last 1 month, last 2 months. And from there on, it was very, very positive. Of course, there were setbacks. Having said that, sometimes I decided to do certain things, but behaviors at times are not easy to change, right? It's easier said than done.
Yeah.
But then I think it was very positive. The way he supported me, the way he coached me, the way he constantly asked me for introspection. And whenever I came back to the meeting, he knew that in my conversation, whether I've done it or not done it, but he was always showing a big picture. I mean, that always motivated me. So it's all about relationship, right? And it was a very positive, and I felt I could learn, I could implement, and I could move forward kind of thing.
So did you put an effort on a day-to-day basis, or was it in spurts?
So, I mean, I would say that initially it was in spurts, but as I moved along, I felt more comfortable, right? And then it came into behaviors. I think someone talked about it, that it came into a conscious way of doing things. So that was easier then. Initially, it needed specific effort. So, but then it came into my behavior, hopefully, and then it was much easier.
Lovely. Hi, Bindu. You're a trained coach and you head development for a very large organization, Oracle. You've been with the IT industry all along. You have worked with IBM, Infosys, and many other companies. Is coaching really different for the IT industry? Because we hear clients asking us, have you coached anybody from the IT industry? Or even if it's consulting, have you coached anybody from the big four or the big five? No, these are questions which clients pose to coaches. I'm not sure how much of domain knowledge is important, but very often we hear that IT is quite different. Maybe because engineers are different, the way they have been educated and the way they think. What's your experience?
Okay, Jagdish, that's a question that I'm sure a lot of the people who are attending the session will also find interesting, precisely because I'm sure a lot of them are working in IT companies and have these kind of issues they confront on a daily basis. The issue with IT is it is really a quarter-on-quarter business. Unlike other businesses, there is dramatic change every quarter. You can actually see it happening, right? And not so much in other industries, which typically have a longer gestation period, so that helps them. The second part is engineers are problem solvers, okay? And so they immediately have a tendency to go to the solution. They're enormously left-brained. And therefore, they look at a lot of the coaching initiative as something that a company will offer them if there is a derailment in their personality. So the question that you will be immediately asked is there something wrong with me or my leadership style? Because essentially they think that maybe I'm wired differently and therefore I'm not able to lead the team or lead the organization. So that is typically something they look at. And the initial period, the teething troubles that any such engagement has in any individual to individual, coach to coachee, it gets even more difficult in an IT context because unlike what Rajiv or an Ajay shared, they actually look for a solution to come from the coach, and coaches who are not inclined to provide the solution and want it to come organically from the coachee, they do initially think, what is he doing? I mean, this is like a dialogue, I don't need it. So there is that element of difficulty in that engagement in the IT industry, because typically they want quick solutions, quick fixes. They want you to come and tell them how to reorganize their life, etc. The third part, which is a fundamental question you asked, which is interesting, is that does coaching actually help people to get a little more future focused, or look at the big picture, or get the zeitgeist, if you will?
Yeah.
I think there is an element of the zeitgeist that comes from coaching that is absolutely required in the IT context. Because see, they look so much at the trees, they sometimes forget the forest, and then when you give them the forest, they forget the trees. There's a need to bring both of these into play as leaders in IT organizations, and therefore I think that coaching style helps them. So after a couple of sessions, they get very comfortable, they're extremely happy. Initially, as most of them said, there is a difficulty in the vulnerability element, but they do get open to vulnerability to express difficulties they've experienced, because working with people, whether it's customers or your employees, is a tad difficult for software engineers than it is to code. So yes, in those ways, it's fundamentally different from other industries.
Thank you for bringing that out. I mean, it's fundamentally engineers are trained to look for solutions,
Yeah.
and it's a great thing that we have engineers who are trained to do that. And but when you feel that something that his leadership can move to another level, and you want to help him with a coach, but he believes he's not ready, how do you handle that?
As I told you, see, the bigger problem is, if you said he, and it's interesting.
Oh, she.
You said he. Okay, because most of our IT industry's problem is no. I'm not trying to correct you.
No. Bindu, let me just clarify. I find it easier when we talk to a lady about coaching. She's more open.
Yeah.
I find the headwinds with the men.
You said it. So interestingly, for a lot of IT organizations today, the struggle is to get women to accept that they're ready to take on the next level. Because as you rightly said, there is an eco-social system as well as gender-specific characteristics that keep them from taking the next role. So I feel men are more, especially if you're telling them, you're grooming them and coaching them for the next role, they're more than willing to take it up. Mm-hmm. Whereas women have a lot of existential angst. Okay. And they do think that perhaps, maybe I'm not ready, etc. So I think it's a bigger challenge to get women to move to, to accept coaching, to move to the next level. Because they're more willing to say, okay, I'm not doing a great job at the current level, and maybe I can optimize what I do. And therefore, it's a struggle to get women to accept coaching to move to the next level, or move the needle, if you will.
Oh, lovely. That's a great insight. Let me try and get Urvashi's view on that. Urvashi, what we just heard is that women, have this angst if they're looking at a career which is moving at a fast pace and stuff like that, and they're ready or not ready. You run HR consulting firm, Reflexion, and you also have a coach platform called Coach Compass. So have you seen these kind of stuff, trends, and what other trends do you see which are emerging in the coaching industry and from the client side as well?
Thanks, Jagdish. Both, I think, very pertinent questions, and I think close to the heart of many of us. I think in comparison to how many men we will see being coached, the number of women itself is a little bit lower. We've seen organizations specifically look at women leaders throughout their organizations getting coached to overcome exactly what Bindu described, that it's my own internal belief system that needs to change, that I can do it. So oftentimes we find the coach needs to work not on the capability, not on any behavior, but on the belief system for the senior leader, the senior woman leader who needs to be coached. And I also think that unfortunately sometimes it also becomes that if I go too far ahead and if I earn more than my partner, my family members, how is that going to cause a disequilibrium? So I think somewhere these are the psychosocial factors that one needs to contend with. Yeah, and I see that the intent of many organizations is to invest in women, is to get more diverse folks on their panels, not just women. I think just different people with different backgrounds, different industries. And what we see in organizations right now is more openness. Coaching itself is being used for capability development, for leadership development. There was a time a few years ago when if you got assigned a coach, you actually should have been worried because it was quite possible that there was something to fix, you know, and that mindset has changed within organizations. Right now, coaching a leader is seen as an enabler. It's offered to those who are high potential, who are your succession pipeline. You see the leaders of organizations getting involved right from the beginning. They take the time to talk to the coaches, to give an overview about the organization, talk about the goals. So I think this is a very heartening trend that we see from organizations today, that there is intent, there is also muscle behind the intent, and there is a lot of faith and trust in the coaching process, not just for leadership coaching, but also for middle management. And it may take the form of team coaching or group coaching. And a third layer that organizations are adopting is a mindset of how can a leadership style, which is a coaching leadership style, be cascaded throughout the organization.
You know, since you are so close to observing these trends and you also are associated with research, anything that you would like the coaches to know what we need to stop doing?
Well, I think the one thing that all of us as coaches could do a lot more of is be very clear about the expectations right at the front. So if there are goals that need to be met, and there are three perspectives to take it. It is the coach's own perspective, it is the organization's expectation, and the direct manager's expectation. So all these viewpoints need to be taken on board right at the start. And once you have that alignment, and it may take some time, but once you have that alignment and people partner you throughout the coaching journey, it becomes much easier. So setting the goal right at the front is something that I think would be very useful.
We shall keep that in mind, Urvashi. Thank you so much. You know, we all love to work towards a coaching culture. And Nitin, you are the man who's driving this kind of a project in your company. You know, across South Asia, you are driving the coaching culture by actually training and coaching your leaders to become coach leaders, to have a dominant culture which is coach driven or coaching driven. Your company, Samsung, is spending so much of time, money, effort, people, all that is being spent on this. Tell us more, and we would like to understand from you and your company's vision and your vision on this project. And where are you on this at the moment?
Thank you so much. Actually, the coaching culture by itself is something that Samsung is looking as a change, because Samsung as an organization, it started as a Korean company. Over time, it has become a global conglomerate. It has about 29 to 30 overseas R&D subsidiaries across the world. So there are manufacturing plants, there are R&D centers. So today the global population in Samsung has increased. It is much more than the Korean population. It's no more a Korean company, it's now a global company. So looking at that aspect, Samsung invests in change to adapt to global standards. Now that you're employing so many people across the world who come from a diverse culture, who from different countries who have a completely different outlook about business, or even in terms of culture and in terms of interactions. So at a very deep level, Samsung felt that coaching is the in thing for the future. So it looks at more in terms of business implications as well as behavioral changes. So when you talk about business implications, today we live in a world, especially in R&D, there are very few people who are experts in a certain technology that we are looking for. And these few people, while they're working in the organization, they are constantly in demand across the market. And how do you ensure that whatever time they spend in your organization, you utilize their potential to the maximum? So one way of doing that is, use all those traditional retention measures that you possibly do, like, increasing the salaries and, providing them some incentives and things like that. But it doesn't work anymore. These days, millennials, youngsters, they're so attracted by the quality of work rather than the money aspect in it, the future growth and things like that. And also, when we talk about innovation, Samsung's today is number one in terms of innovation, in terms of producing the number of patents across the world. Now, how did this happen? This happened by constantly changing their approach in terms of what the world over do in terms of research. It's the same phenomenon that is involved even in terms of building a coaching culture, wherein if you have to ensure that you keep this innovation momentum going over a long period, you have to keep the people motivated. And again, when you talk about traditional management styles, you can't keep people motivated by telling them what to do. So today's world, it's the best ways to ask or empower the people to figure out what is it that they can contribute. They have tremendous knowledge, they have tremendous intelligence. How do you tap that? How do you maximize that potential? And it's pretty much imminent that coaching is something that is perfectly aligned to it. And last but not the least, it is more in terms of keeping the workforce intact. What we call as community style of working or community culture. In today's world, there's so much of competition. Everybody is earning lakhs of rupees, and they are thrown incentives like anything. So in a situation like this, how do you ensure that people are able to selflessly do things to the organization in ensuring that the growth is in alignment with their own aspirations? So all these put together, if you look at it from that perspective of innovation, in terms of motivating them to perform, to innovate consistently, and also to handle the competition that is all this few people, few experts that we have in the industry working in that cutting edge technology. So this situation has actually, kind of made us to think very hard on what is it that we can do to inspire people rather than, try to hold them in many ways than not. Rather than the push approach, how do you use the pull approach? So that's pretty much what we are trying to do in Samsung. So we started this global coaching program. So I was part of the task force where people from all over the world, all other regions, we came together. So we are all certified coaches. We all came together to build a curriculum that is more customized to Samsung needs, more aligned to what Samsung is looking for in their leaders. So we are not looking at leaders becoming professional coaches. We are looking at leaders using the approach of coaching, which can help them enable their team members to perform to their best, maximize their potential. We invest so much on these young people. We hire, we are the highest in terms of hiring from the IITs. we invest so much, but then are we able to maximize their potential, whatever time they spend? So these are people who come and go. They might spend about 2 to 3 years in the organization, and then they are sucked into many other things like higher education or some other organization, some challenging roles. How do you maximize the potential while they are there? And most of the leaders who come from the traditional mindset are clueless. They don't know how to manage these millennials. So
when you look at
well,
your
coaching could have been the best method forward. Yeah.
Great. So when you see your progress so far and the milestones that you might have earmarked for yourself on the journey, how happy are you?
We're not in that stage yet. So if you look at the graph, we are still in the stage of induction of coaching culture in the organization. However, having said that, I've had some experience in terms of how the leaders take coaching rather than being a coach. So we had this program called the Thought Leadership Program. So I anchored this program in the organization. So part of this program is to assign coaches to our senior leaders so that they're able to come out of their shells. So they're pretty much leaders who are taking care of their own technology areas, building that technology across the world, but then how to make them thought leaders, how to make them people who can give opinions, articulate them, and be Samsung ambassadors, be talent magnets, influence internally and externally. So in line with this, we thought, okay, coaching could help. So we brought the coaches, the professional coaches in. And today, after about, it's been a year or so since we have assigned the coaches, when I asked the leaders what change has this coaching initiative brought in them, they say that they have internalized so much. So all these days, everything they felt about them is external. What I did externally, what targets I achieved, how big the business has become. But today they are actually looking within themselves and telling to themselves, I've not done anything at all for myself. Look at me, look at the way I think. Look at, the child in me doesn't come out. I'm not so vulnerable anymore. So these are the things that they have realized, and they're able to understand what self-awareness is all about. And this reflection, self-reflection about themselves, it's kind of influencing their own team members as well.
Amazing, amazing story. Thank you for sharing. Let's get into, the audience have a lot of questions, and there are quite a few of them. Let me take the first question from the audience. Having been on both sides and given your journey, please reflect on the way you have seen coaching evolve and its future ahead. It's from Rajiv from Puneet Mehrotra.
Okay, I guess, thanks, Puneet. Thanks, Jagdish. So I guess some of these points got covered. I think Bindu mentioned a few of these, that coaching is moving from something that, you went through without anyone else in the company coming to know about, because it was to, fix something about you. And that was 90% of the coaching was for that purpose. And therefore, instead of meeting your coach in your office, you went to the coach's office, or you met somewhere else outside and stuff like that. So I think from that, it's moving to where coaching is something which is given maybe given even in advance of a transition and so on, to help a person succeed. It's given to the most successful of folks, not the ones where the behavioral issues have to be fixed. Though of course those, you have the need for coaching comes from many areas, but I'm just saying that it's moving more towards kind of being proactive and trying to help a person be even more successful, rather than as a prelude to a PIP or something. And we've seen all those cases earlier. So I guess that's the way it's the coaching in organizations is moving. Did you also mean how things are changing for the coach? Was there also part of it, Jagdish?
Reflect on the way you have seen coaching evolve and its future ahead.
In the future of coaching, I guess I think it's important that that each of us, as coaches, I think we should benefit from coaching in as early as we can, and get into it as early as we can, because I think it makes a very big difference. I told you my own life story. I went through huge struggles with minimal support of coaching and so on. So therefore, I think is that I think we should opt for it, at even if you're in junior management or maybe even if you're a student, maybe you can benefit from a coach. So that is one. The other thing is that I think there is going to be a surfeit of coaches, because we're already seeing it. Even ICF is tightening some of its kind of processes and so on, and some of the the hurdles that you need to cross before you can become a PCC, MCC, and so on. I think there's going to be a surfeit of coaches, and therefore, if you for folks who are planning to take it up as a full-time career, or you want to maybe look at it once you move out of a regular scheme of work, is to be aware of your own strengths as a coach. You're surely going to have certain strengths. There's no doubt about it. It's not that you won't have it, but you need to be very aware of it and the specific niche in which you want to operate. So there are business coaches, there are behavioral coaches, there are life coaches, and and you can define yourself in many ways, but be very aware. It's very important for a coach to be very, very self-aware. Okay, I think that is very important. And I also believe that at one level, you also need to really like people. I think that's important. And for example, I believe that I'm a quite a terrible introvert, but I like people. So it's a kind of almost anomalous, but therefore that helps me when I even in consulting, or even when I'm getting into coaching engagements, that helps me, because there's that thing where you want to help a person, and you want to kind of you have that little bit of thing which is there. So I guess that's important. That's it from my side.
Thank you, Rajiv. There's another question, and that says, at what point does one realize or think that he needs a coach? From John Jacob. I guess we'll put this question to Bindu.
Yeah, thanks. See, the assumption, this is a catch-22 actually. The assumption is you're self-aware. And ideally, all of us as human beings should be, but sadly we aren't. Many times, the person who requires coaching may not actually be the person who suggests that they need a coach. It could come from anywhere else, anybody who has an investment into the person's career, because we are talking about a business context, may actually suggest the coach. It could be an upline manager, a peer, or even somebody in the human resources organization. More often than not, at least in 90% of the cases, people are blindsided to a need for a coach. There is noise. I'm not saying there won't be noise. There is some kind of noise about what is happening. Could they be better? Could they optimize? Are they really living the life that they want to live ideally? Are they leading in an optimal way, etc.? There is noise, but it's not like they immediately think of coaching. So I think it's very important to have an organization, and as they're practicing in Samsung, very interesting. When you create a peer-to-peer coaching, or you create a coach-like mindset or coach-like managers, I think it becomes easier for organizations. So I think that's something all of us can take back from today's session, that you create a coaching culture, and thereby self-awareness increases in people, and they're also open to being vulnerable, and you're creating a psychological safety net for people to say, okay, I may need a coach at this point. Yeah.
Thank you. There's a question from Radhika Narayan. How does coaching tackle emotional courage and subjective temperament? Urvashi, would you like to take it?
Oh, in fact, I read the question as it came in, and it's really touching on the core of coaching, because one of the outcomes and even one of the intents of a coaching partnership is to build resilience, to build your emotional courage as a leader, to take on maybe a different kind of a decision, maybe a riskier decision. And the coaching partnership really enables you to be able to take that risk as a leader. So EQ, or emotional resilience, or the outcome of emotional courage, is that you take business decisions that are new to you, that are not tried and tested.
Thank you. I think the last question I'd like to put to Arif. Arif, when has coaching not worked? What are your top reasons that you've identified for where coaching has not worked?
Again, I'll take an example, Jagdish, because it's
Okay.
always helpful. So we had a leader, and obviously for confidentiality reasons, I will not name the role, business, and so on. But we had a leader who seemed to have had at that point in time tremendous potential because understood the business very well, the market, customers, what was needed to be done, but had a significant challenge in inspiring teams. Was very directive in nature, and especially was operating in a highly evolving and dynamic market. And we felt that unless he changes his style of engagement with his team, success in the long run or even in the midterm will not be there for the person as well as for the company. And there were significant issues. And we felt that we'll engage with the person, and like as I said earlier, had a conversation with the person that you probably need a coaching in addition to the support we provide from the organization, just to reflect a lot more and be a different leader from an operating style. Uh, uh, when we started the relationship, we felt it's going to work. They started on a positive note, but actually it didn't work at all. And when we reflected on the situation, we finally let go of the leader. We realized that the reason it was not working was because the person was just not open to learning and even sharing his or her own challenges, accepting feedback in certain situations, was very closed as a leader. So because the person was just not open to, I wouldn't say just coaching, but more than coaching, feedback, listening, open to different points of views, we realized it wasn't working. And I think that's very important. Unless the individual is accepting of the need from core of the heart versus to 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 tick a check mark for the organization, I think it's just not something which works.
Thank you. We've been given another few minutes by the organizers. So I can take one more maybe, or maybe two, I don't know. Let me see. There are, it seems that this is a question from Pushpendra Singh. It seems that women want to be coached by women. Why? Who would love to take this?
Can I take a stab at it, Jagdish?
Yeah, okay.
So I think I'm not wrong, actually in agreement with the sentiment that women would like to be coached by women. I think choosing a coach is really a matter of whom you're comfortable with. And, we do want the coachee to have a choice in who they choose. It just needs to be a person that they're comfortable with. You can be vulnerable with the person. It's somebody you can trust. You might have to share some angst or something, which is, not something that you would really like the whole world to know. So choosing a coach is more about who and where you can place your vulnerability and your trust. And mostly we find it's not dependent on the gender, more on the equation between the two people.
Thank you. Ajay, let me dive into your brains. What could be the success factors that one would like to see from coaching? Or in other words, what could be like, you're an engineer and you drive engineering vertical. So what could be the ROI for coaching?
All right. Yeah. Interesting question. And right. So what I would say is that look at what kind of changes it has brought, not only an individual, but in the culture of the organization, right? And what kind of business impact does it create? Honestly, it's not easy to measure, but over a period of time, you can actually figure out. So in terms of simple ROI is, are people broadening enough? Because the business challenges are huge today, right? And as Bindu rightly said, that we immediately jump into problem solving, right? But sometimes you have to do a much more bigger thing than that. So coming back to your ROI point, I think the simple ROI is how much business impact it has created in next 2 to 3 years line. And but that is one simple ROI I would like to see that. And are these leaders who have become more, maybe a better leader, are they able to build more leaders internally? That would be the second aspect I would look at.
On this ROI, most companies, get their top management or top leadership guys to be coached. And if you have coached 2 or 3 people, maybe at the leadership level, do you believe that the impact will be seen in the P&L over the next 2 to 3 years?
I mean, as I said, it's at times difficult to measure it depending on the level that you are doing. But yes, at least in our case, in few cases, we could at least see a lot of impact because the business thinking changed. But as I said, it's very difficult to measure that what you can attribute because of coaching. That's the real difficult part.
Okay. Rajiv, you want
Jagdish,
to bring in
yeah,
something?
Jagdish, if I may. So I guess, I was just intrigued by that ROI question and whether, P&L really changes. So I guess, so it's a little convoluted way through which it reaches the P&L, if I can put it that way.
Okay.
And maybe, there are, maybe if you look at other metrics, which could also be things like what kind of feedback they're getting on 360 or, maybe other metrics, which may be there. So for example, if you're coaching someone for, certain behavioral kind of aspects and it's a team from which, a lot of folks are leaving or, generally, the feedback hasn't been good for the managers. So all those metrics would change quite a bit. But I think it's probably the subject for maybe a longitudinal study where you can see, whether that linkage can be established. Thanks.
Thank you, Rajiv. Thank you to all the panel members. I mean, it's been extremely interesting and insightful. I have learned quite a bit from this panel, and I feel blessed that I was part of it as a moderator to really see you guys from a close balcony view and dive deep into your minds. I certainly hope that this panel, the 6 of us, can meet for a longer period of time and spend more time because there's so much to learn from each other. I mean, but thank you very much for having come, shared your time, shared your thoughts, shared your experiences, and so willingly and so transparently. Thank you so much. I am deeply honored. Thank you.
Thank you, Jagdish, for facilitating
Jagdish.
so well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you, Rashmi. Thanks to all the panelists. Thanks to all the participants.
Honestly, Jagdish, I think you moderated this very well. Everyone was their authentic self. And the number of comments would have told you that this was a very beautiful way you got into the topic, delved deep in the topic. And as I was listening to you, what came to my mind is a quote I'd read very long back saying that not all storms come to disrupt you in life, some come to clear your path. And what we are currently going through maybe is that inward journey to clear all the path, because many a time our fears are just like every other limitation. We stop ourselves from being who we can truly be. And it's moments like these which tell us. And thank you so much, every panelist, Anurag, Ajay, Rajiv, Arif, Bindu, Urvashi, Nitin, and Jagdish, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was really, really insightful.
Thank you.
We have a poll now, which will come up, after which we have MG joining us. So I request all the participants to join in for the poll. Today we had IT, ITES, startups, and the biopharma industry that was included. We would be having manufacturing through the week, women focused and their coaching journeys as part of the coaching week. So make sure that now that you're registered, you're part of every session that has been planned very carefully to make sure you delve deeper into coaching yourself. So thank you to each one of you. And one poll, and then I request all the panelists to come back so there can be a nice gallery view picture of all of us together, because virtually the biggest plus is a lot more people, not from the same city, but from everywhere, can join in to make it that much more meaningful and fruitful. Nitin, are we good to go with the poll?
Absolutely. And here it comes.
Yeah. Okay, your feedback, please. How would you rate the session? Boring, neutral, excellent. I feel coaching can bring value to me and my organization. And what topics would you reach a coach for if you need help?
Interesting to
So
see
if
the
all the
graph going up
panelists
and
can come
down.
back, yeah, if all the panelists can come back and join us, then we can have a gallery view. Vasu, if you can organize that for a nice photo op of the first day, so meaningfully having reached conclusion. Jagdish, you are past president. So what do you feel now sitting on this chair?
Fantastic. I mean, when we were leaving the management committee, at least I was absolutely sure that the next committee is better placed and better equipped to do a better job than us. Because when I was in industry, I was always told that I need to recruit somebody who's better than me in the company to make the company flourish. And I think we have done that with the next management committee. So I'm sure the chapter will, shine.
Okay, thank you for those encouraging words. So I hope the MC is listening to that. So great value is what most of you feel. Thank you very much. And well, to remind you again, 10 sessions over the week. Make sure you're in same time, 4 to 5:30, a break of an hour, 6:30 to 8 is how every session is going to pan for the next full week from 4th, that is today, till the 10th. God bless you all. Thank you so much for your participation.
Tomorrow,
Stay blessed.
just to let you know, tomorrow's focus
Yeah.
is on women. So I would urge all the men's to join in. Women will obviously join.
No, Nitin, if you noticed about women being wanted to be coached by women, it was only the women who took that question.
So may I request Arif? May I request Arif and John to also switch their videos on?
Yeah, and MG, formal vote of thanks. You're muted.
No, Rashmi, with after your energetic closing, what can be a formal vote of thanks be? But I think it was so much like it was just like wanting to go to Udupi restaurant for a breakfast of idli and dosa and land up in a 5-star hotel with a spread which you can't, swallow all in one day. Awesome. The panel was just great, and Jagdish, you did a fabulous job of it. The entire day was excellent. So I think this is the time for us to do a little bit of not forgetting the green room boys. So first of all, let me thank Nitin, Vasu, and of course Rashmi, you, Gauri, and a few other members of the MC for pulling this off.
Where is Vasu? I can't see Vasu.
He's in the IC 2020 India.
Okay. So the second thing which I would definitely like to say is I must also put in a good word for all the chapters. If the chapters, all the 5 chapters of India had not got together and not collaborated, we wouldn't have done this job. We wouldn't have been able to attract 350 people in the first session and close to something like 200 and odd people in this session. As Jagdir was pointing out, normally it used to be in the zone of 60 to 100. The spirit of collaboration was fabulous, and I must thank not only this MC and the other MC members of the chapters also. And a special word of thanks to Bindu. I don't know why I should be pulling out her name alone in the panel. The rest of you, I hope you don't mind, although you did a fantastic job. Your words resounded with us, like you said. Most people make an assumption that we are self-aware, and often that could itself show that you are not self-aware. And as organizations move from where they are today to the future, where coaching culture becomes an integral part of the organization, which is what the vision of ICF is, making coaching an integral part of a thriving society. So, Bindu, your words were resonating with what we are thinking in ICF, and thank you very much for all your kind words. And I must not forget to thank the 350 participants in the first session and the 260 participants in the second session, and the plethora of questions that were pummeling in. My goodness. Oh man, the energy was, it has to be seen to be believed. And therefore, thank you all, and I won't stay between you and your dinner. And thanks once again, the MC, Rashmi, and everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.